My name is Wesley Skeeto. I'm a mitigation forester for North Carolina Forest Service. I handle the western 50 counties of the state. Here today to look at some of the work that's been done around our mountain training facility here in Crossnore, North Carolina.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Hartzell with Blue Ridge Resource Conservation and Development, a local nonprofit. We work closely with the North Carolina Forest Service and other partners to help communities learn how to reduce their wildfire risk.
As you can see here with the metal around it, there was some stone put down as a barrier around this building. You know, that first 5 feet or so coming out is what we really want to pay the most attention to when we're dealing with inorganic mulch versus something like pine straw that's going to burn like the dickens. You really want to control your landscape selections, what kind of plants you put down. Things like mountain laurel and rhododendron, if they're planted right up against the house, those are very flammable species. Something like a hydrangea, something with a high moisture content is going to be where you want to go if you're making your planting selections in that first 5 feet, 10 feet of your home. Even the rock though, it does take some maintenance. Nothing is maintenance free, whether it's gutters, if you're living up on top of a mountain ridge, you've got to maintain that view. Oftentimes doing that vegetation maintenance downhill of you, off your back porch, that's really good for fire risk as well. So a lot of these things check multiple boxes. When you're cleaning your gutters out, you're protecting your facial board, you're protecting your maintenance issues, you're protecting your value of your home, but you're also reducing the risk that embers would come along from wildfire and catch your home, get your home going.
As Wes mentioned, maintenance is a huge issue. So as you can see, we have some pine straw and leaf debris that is along this porch, which is flammable, and then under this porch. So what we're going to do is remove that stuff away from the home, make sure you take it a safe distance away from the home, and that will help reduce our risk should an ember find its way under the porch or land on the porch itself.
You really want to look at where fences, a lot of times if you have privacy fences, if you have wooden trellises, especially if they're covered up with vegetation, vines, a lot of times people will like to put in those. But where you have wood that connects to your home coming in, that can act like a fuse. You've got your long bomb fuse coming along just like in the Looney Tunes and will bring fire to your home. You got down here, you got sidewalk, you got river rock, you got cinder block foundation. All those are good. But if you've got something like this where an ember can get started in these leaves, get the deck on fire and travel it up to your home, you're really giving that fire a shortcut. So we want to make sure to keep all this blown out. So with a wooden construction home, especially one made out of rough sawn lumber, you got all kind of nooks and crannies for those wildfire embers to get into. You've got some remodel construction that was done here when this deck was built. You got these 2 stoops going onto the back porch and into the kitchen door there. So really want to get these sealed up. We'll demonstrate that at a future time. But right up here, you've got a lot of cracks, a lot of places that embers can get into. You can use caulk. You can use that great stuff, just depending on how important aesthetics are to you. But you can get a lot of those nooks and crannies sealed up, especially back behind here. The way these are rough and the way you've got these small pieces, typical when Boy Scouts build a campfire, you start with small and you get bigger, and that's what you've got looking at you right here. So when your home has this type of construction, these are things you really want to keep in mind.
So last time we were visiting this home, the bottom of this porch was exposed, and as part of our recommendation, we added some screen. This is greater than 1/8 inch screening, and we recommend at least 1/8 inch. And this keeps out leaf debris, woody debris, pine needles, and also helps with just general maintenance of your house. Keep stuff out, and this will keep ember from going in there and starting any little nests that build up. This is a metal screening, and we also recommend that for any vents along the roof or under the eaves to have that size metal screening to keep those embers from entering into attic spaces or the home itself.
We're looking here as you transition from the home out to the woods, kind of that buffer layer there where you want to do these treatments. You know, you got the first 15 feet or so is clear. You got your horseshoe pit here. But then as you get into where I'm standing now, if you look down the hill, the rhododendron thicket that you're looking at, that was right up to where I'm standing now. So really very little defensible space. We used a masticating machine owned by the North Carolina Forest Service to come in here and knock a lot of this rhododendron down, grind it up, you know, get that reduced. We did leave, if you look over here, a couple of mountain laurel individuals. Nothing wrong with individuals, even though they're within that 30 feet of the house. They're spaced out. They've been elevated a little bit. You took some of the lower limbs off, and they're spaced out. So you don't have a fire moving through. What we're looking at down here is really going to be a flaming front. It's just going to be rolling through there. When the fire gets through there, and now all you've got is hardwood and pine litter here, you know, your fire is going to be on the ground. It's going to be much lower intensity, and your home's going to be in better shape because of it. Firewood piles is another thing that we talk about. You see here some of the mastication I was talking about. There was some individual trees taken down, and they made a firewood pile here. But we're in excess of 30 feet from the house. It's a key. You don't want any combustibles. You don't want propane, gas tanks. You don't want accumulations of firewood. Anything that's really going to serve as a concentrated source of fuel for an approaching wildfire, you want to keep all those at least 30 feet from the home.
Last time we were out here, we had a propane tank pretty close to the home that was not being used. So since that time, that tank's been removed and that potential hazard has been removed from the equation. But next we're going to work on blowing these leaves away from the home, blowing the leaves and pine needles off the roof, and just cleaning up around the home to make sure there's no fine fuels next to the home. So as you can see where this house is located, we're surrounded by forest. We have a lot of pine trees that give off pine needles. We have deciduous trees that give off leaves. So on this roof, a lot of leaves and pine needles accumulate after fall, and also on the ground. So our next steps will be to remove those and clean up around the house and on the roof and reduce the risk. And that's a constant thing that people need to understand, that it's an annual thing. Oftentimes you get so much leaf litter, you have to do it in 3 or 4 trips because it gets so thick. But stay at it and make sure that those flammable materials are away from the home.
So we mentioned the mastication. As you can see in this area here, it's been a year plus, probably moving on 2 years since that mastication was done. You have a lot of regen comes out. These rhododendron will come back out. You have some sourwood regeneration coming out here. There is a maintenance component when you're doing this type of work, when you're reducing your risk to wildfire. It's not a one and done. You've either got to come around, a lot of times you can use herbicide, very targeted, little shoe polish type applicators that you can buy at Lowe's or Home Depot. Just right when you lop and shear something off, hit that with that targeted brush killer, and you won't have to come back and do that quite as often. If you're opposed to herbicides, there are other alternatives. You can find those on the website, what those are. But then there's good old-fashioned sweat equity. If you want to come in here every year or every other year, get you a sling blade, little swinging a golf club type deal, and knock some of this down. If you want to hit it with a weed eater with a brush attachment, that is your prerogative. A little more work involved, but definitely a plug from my perspective for that brush killer application right when you knock something down. So these attachments, if you don't feel like climbing on the ladder, these are really handy. I mean, you put this in right here, it cinches down on your blower. You've got sections. You can go as high as you need to or as short as you need to. Really, really handy. Available at your local hardware store. As you can see from the footage that we took, you may need a little more horsepower on your blower if you start getting out towards the extent of multiple sections. All right, so we've completed some of our work. Mother Nature has dumped all her leaves and pine needles on us, and we've gone around. You can see under the deck there, maybe a future site for some more screen and lattice like we had around back. Save us some work, but you saw the ways that we were able to get under there and clean that out. That way, if embers do land, they're landing on that pea gravel, kind of that defensible space that we've created. So moving around, we've got the gravel treatment that we did. Doesn't look quite so much like pine needles like it did before, especially when the roof got cleaned off. You know, they all land there. You can't just let things land and lay. You've got to go ahead and clean out, recreate that defensible space as you move around. Foundation vents, those have got those screen that Jonathan was talking about earlier. So good to keep those clean. I believe there was some shots of one of the white lattice sections getting cleaned out. Make sure that you don't have that pine needles, especially white pine needles. Seems like the smaller they are, the more they like to bunch up and stick in places. All your nooks and crannies, corners, behind the heat pump, make sure you get that cleaned out real well. But then we've got a lot of green grass that you can see out here. That due to the hardwood litter was just covered up. You know, we talked about earlier the fences and trellises and other fuse type material that will bring fire to your home. Leaves would do the same thing, so you want to make sure to keep those cleaned out. Wes,
would you touch up these pine needles with some light raking, or you think this is at a good density of?
It's probably cleaner up towards the top. Yeah, you could probably hit this another little bit, but if you can look through it, especially needles that have just come off, they haven't dried out bone dry yet. If you get a fire that's coming through the woods, especially up that slope, and then as it crests and goes flat, it's got another 8 feet of leaves to get through there at a very low rate. And then when it hits this, I mean, it's going to go out. You're not going to have a flame creep with this much green vegetation visible through it.
Yeah.
It's not going to make it to the home.
Do you have any thoughts about the limbs that are kind of encroaching above the house and almost over the roof?
Yeah, we've got recommendations for overhanging limbs. You want to make sure they've got 10 foot of clearance. The sourwood we're looking at, we do have 10 feet on the one that's nearest the pitch of the roof. Moving across, you got that other one. Not quite 10 feet on that. Probably need to get out here with a pole saw and trim that back some.
Nice.
The lowest limb there, it's going to continue to grow out and about, try to get out from under the leaves or the limbs that are over top of it. That's a limb that probably just needs to come off at the tree. Pole saw will reach that one. May need to consult a tree company for the further up limbs.
Well, Wes, this back here where we blowed those leaves away looks drastically different.
Yep, got a lot of this moss that we're looking at. When you get on the backside of a building like this, especially up here in the mountains, anybody that's tried to get grass to grow where it doesn't want to knows this moss is great. Holds the ground, good for erosion control, and is really not going to burn, unless you're just in a tremendous drought situation. That moss is going to extinguish the flame when it tries to come out from under that mountain laurel here. Mountain laurel, worth noting that we did blow out all the leaves that kind of piled up under there. Still got a little bit hanging on here, but don't want to leave a tinderbox up under vegetation like that, especially those high flammability. Probably come around here and do some more pruning on those lower limbs on these. Make sure that we've got a little bit of distance between a potential low activity ground fire and those bottom limbs and that green vegetation.
And that will also help get those leaves out from under it and where they can't cling on to those lower branches.
That's right. All right, we've got our steps that we talked about earlier. Got those blown out. Don't have accumulations of leaves and pine needles up against those. Extending out, you got a good 10, 15 feet here cleared. Moving around, back out to where the sunshine hits. We're back to a green lawn. Just maintain that in a short fashion. I mean, dormant season, we shouldn't have to be running the lawnmower very much, but if you look up in there, we got a bird's nest that wasn't here last time I was here. We need to make sure and knock that down before springtime comes when we've got eggs in it. Bird's nest, wasp nest, those will all catch an ember, and especially in a construction like this one, really don't want those type materials hanging out. Again, with the rock beneath the stairs here, you've got cement up there on the uphill side. Jonathan blew away all those leaves, so we're in really good shape here.
I noticed you were blowing around this outbuilding. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there's a principle in wildfire mitigation called structure to structure ignition potential. The main times that we see this is out in these cookie cutter neighborhoods where you can reach out with extended hands and touch your neighbor's home. And that's really what you see in a wildfire situation. Once one home gets going, it's just a source of embers, and it gets the next home going, and it gets the next home going. In the mountains and in other rural areas, we do have that principle on a micro scale. You can treat your home, you can be home hardened, you can have defensible space, you can be in great shape, but if you've got that shed that's sitting back in the woods edge, or you've got this barbecue grill here, you're reintroducing another source nearby that if it gets going, say it's storing firewood, storing lawnmowers, what have you, if that gets going, it's throwing embers on your house just as much as if you didn't do a thing. So blowing out around those, kind of getting some defensible space behind those woodside sheds. Even up top, we talked about spark arresters, caps. It's good on the home, but here on this one, in dry conditions, we want to get a spark arrestor and a cap on that fireplace as well. Went ahead and blew off the driveway as we were coming around. Want to make sure you got proper access for emergency response. A lot of rural areas, you get this heavy white pine needle layer coming down, it'll slap cover up your driveway. And if it doesn't stand out already, if you just got rhododendron coming up and down both sides of your driveway, it's going to be hard to see. So we want to make sure to maintain not only visibility and clear access, but kind of draw those resources into your home, especially if the home's not visible from the road.
Well, thanks, Wes. This has been really educational and learned a lot, and really appreciate this partnership to help folks learn how to reduce their risk around their homes and property.
Yep. I really enjoy working with the RC&Ds. Y'all are great partners in reducing wildfire risk in these communities. Appreciate y'all joining us today, learning about some of these mitigation practices, creating defensible space, taking home hardening measures, and just all around maintenance. It's a never-ending process. Every year, Mother Nature gives you a little bit to deal with, and and you've got to keep it in check, keep fire at bay. So thanks for joining us. For all the things we've talked about today, plus more, we've got grant opportunities. You can go to our website. North Carolina Forest Service has a wildfire mitigation website. It's www.resistwildfirenc.org.